All right, guys, today is Saturday, October 15th, 2022. So today marks -8 days on my deadline since I missed it. So I've got the car pushed out today working on it. I got so much more light. Even if I'm under the carport, I've got more light out there to work on stuff than I do in this dark garage. So I've got a huge mess in the floor, but I'm getting a little bit of stuff done. So I've been wanting to get the car where it's at least drivable around the housing addition, but I still want to, keep bolting parts on that, would otherwise be kind of simple, which that's never the case when you're messing with reproduction parts. So the antenna, I've got a couple of clips of that. This is a reproduction, and there's a couple of issues with that. Nice high quality piece. Yeah. So I have an issue, I don't know yet, I haven't started the car yet, ran it. So ever since I fixed my alternator by putting the bypass wire from the hot post on the starter to the hot post on the alternator, as per easy wiring instructions, I put on GM stock size pulleys, so now I have charging at idle, because before it wouldn't charge at idle, because I had underdrive pulleys on it and I didn't have the bypass wire in. So the instruction sheet in the wiring harness says to use that bypass wire if you're using I don't remember if it was 80 amp or 90 amp or higher alternator, and I didn't think that was that high of an amp alternator, but I changed the pulleys and I put the bypass wire in at the same time, and it fixed my charging issue. But when the car is running up to temp and the electric fan is on, when I go to turn the key off at the switch to shut the engine down, it backfeeds the starter, the fan does, and engages the starter on the flex plate for a second when I'm shutting it off. So it makes that nice grinding sound as if you're starting a car that's already running. So that's always awesome. So I think I've narrowed it down. I've piddled with it for a couple of days. I think I figured out what's wrong with it, but I've got to test it, start it up, get it up to temp, and get the fan on to see. I had the battery wire to the relay going to my ignition switch, to the battery on the ignition switch. So I think that may be the problem. It does say in the instructions very, very clearly to run that positive battery wire on your relay directly to the battery. Well, my battery's in the trunk, so that's why I didn't do that. I didn't want to have to run a wire all the way back there and put an inline fuse back there. But guess what I ended up having to do yesterday? So I run a pretty good size wire back there to the battery, and I did put an inline fuse in it. Put a 20 amp fuse in it. So now the fuse is pretty much, I think it's 4 or 5 inches away from the battery post. So in case anything shorts out, it'll pop the fuse. So hopefully that cures that. Now I did start running all the wiring up here. I do need to wire up the headlight and turn signal on this side. This red wire here is for my windshield washer pump that I need to install. It goes up under here. And then I have a rubber hose here that's for the windshield washer assembly. I've got it coming through a rubber grommet in the inner fender. So pretty much the whole front end of the car is wired up and you don't see any wires. So I think that's kind of nice. Other than you see a little bit of green on the horn wire. I should have put some heat shrink on that length of wire so it'd disappear in that black, but I did not. So just doing little tidbits and touch-ups and that kind of little stuff there. So I've got my Billet Specialties heater hose clamps on. I've got 3 of them, and I've got them evenly spaced out, so it kind of makes it look nice. That one's actually bolted to the inner fender, and I've got some felt pads on the back side of it in between so it doesn't scratch up the paint. But these are just free floaters, but it does make it look nice. I had to route them down kind of low to get past my big bracket for my cold air pipe that I have, so got to work on that. So another thing, in my very last update video, I showed the car in my garage at night, and it was kind of dark. Showed it complete with the front end on it. I did not talk about this. This is another thing that bit me in my deadline days trying to get the car ready. That is number 4 distributor. And this one was actually on my shelf, and I don't have any idea where it come from. My dad said he thinks he gave me one that was in a shed, but I don't remember that. But it must have been, because I don't remember. But anyway, that HEI distributor was on my shelf. I used my black cap and the coil cover on it. So that's pretty awesome. But this is an unknown distributor. I don't know what brand that is. I think it's probably AC Delco, and the reason I say that is the underneath the counterweight system in that on the shaft is round nylon pads for the counterweights to slide on. These late model or later, Chinese distributors, they don't have those. They just have raised little indents out of steel on them. So everything inside that distributor is nice and tight, new looking. Like, that distributor was very, very clean inside, so I don't know what it is. The only thing that was wrong with it really was the vacuum pod for the vacuum advance was not pulling vacuum or holding vacuum, so I had to replace it. That's one from Summit. That's an adjustable one. You basically take the hose off the end, put an Allen wrench in there, and turn it to put it where you want it. I have it base set at stock length, so it'll give me a good baseline to get the car started, because I still got to start it up, time it, work on the carburetor metering jets, and probably put a power valve in it. I don't know yet. I got to run a vacuum gauge on the metering jets and find out, what my highest vacuum reading is before I can figure out what power valve I need. But anyway, the car did start and run. This is a different coil. This is the coil module and everything that was in that distributor is what I've got in it now. So the distributor that I did have in here that I'd made with a bunch of different HEI parts and pieces, it finally went out on me. I actually backed the car out and I got about right here and it died. And it wouldn't restart. So either the old original coil or the old module went out. That was an original GM coil from no telling, it's decades old. It's had many heat cycles, lots of hours on it. So I don't doubt it that it went out. But I've just been wanting to get new stuff on it so it would fire the plugs hotter and, so I can properly tune the engine instead of tuning it on a weak coil. So I've got a little bit of tuning stuff to do, but I'm really looking forward to where I can start driving the car around the housing addition a little bit and see what else bugs I'm going to have to work out. What else? So I still got to put the bumper on. I still need to finish working on the lower air dam. I don't know. I guess that's probably getting close to it. So I ended up, this is something I finished up this morning. So this is a reproduction firewall pad in here, and where they have little perforated areas for your shift linkage or shift rod, accelerator, not shifter at all, accelerator pedal rod to go through, and it's never in the right spot. So I ended up having to notch it oval to get it over where it needs to be. The problem is you can see it when you're kind of standing out here from the car looking in. You can kind of see that. So I had tried to use a dimmer switch grommet on it, and you could still see on either side of it, so it didn't look very good. So I went through my rubber components. Man, that's really dusty on that rubber pad. I'm gonna have to get in here and clean that up. But anyway, I went through my rubber stuff over there, and I found that adhesive little thin rubber piece, and it was actually cut out like it is on that one side. So I just folded it over and traced it out and cut it out and duplicated it. But anyway, basically I cut out a spot in the middle to cover that, but it sticks on there and you don't see all the perforation on one side and an oval hole I cut out on the other. So I think it looks kind of nice. There was also an unused hole up there, so I cut out a round piece and stuck it up there. You don't really see that one unless you get down here where I'm at. But I'm still wanting to pull these acorn nuts and washers off, and I'm going to paint them black and then put them back on because that's just too shiny on all that. I need to get in there and clean that. That's pretty nasty. So the plan today, or one of the little projects, was to put the antenna in, because an antenna doesn't take that long to put in, because I can listen to my radio if I have the antenna hooked up. So I thought I would go ahead and install that, and then I can put my kick panel in on that side. It's already upholstered, and that part would be done. But it's turned into a freaking mess with the stupid antenna with the reproduction parts. So you'll see them clips in a minute. What else? Kind of thinking I might go ahead and try to put on my door seals today as well. Get those put on. I'm not looking forward to that because it's going to make the doors hard to close, you know. If you've ever put new door rubber on, they are sometimes pretty hard to get your doors to shut. And I think I've talked about it before, but when you put new door rubber on and your doors are really, really hard to shut, don't do anything. Don't readjust your doors or anything. Just let that thing alone. And, you know, it's called taking a seat. That rubber will form to the car and actually start working after a bit. So I need to actually start cleaning this mess up here, but there's my pile of rubber goodness there. I've got all kinds of little rubber goodies that I'm always finding things that I can use out of there, which works out pretty nice. So right now I'm working on painting the original antenna bracket, and I'm using just some aerosol sim self-etching primer. But I'll spray it with that, let it dry, and then I'll use some, probably some, I don't know, engine color, Duplicolor engine paint. I like that spray paint. That stuff's a little bit more durable than your average, you know, Krylon stuff. But I got all kinds of little things to do, and I just wanted to get that done today. So, see how that goes, I guess. But I need to get it running and all that. I do need to go to the gas station and get some fuel, because back when I got this car running, I didn't quite put 5 gallons of gas in it. And I've had it running several times and drove it down the end of the block and back. So I'm sure it didn't use over 4 gallons of gas yet, but it's probably so low that I don't want to start driving around my housing addition and get on the back side over here and run out of gas. So I think I'm going to get another 5 gallons of gas and put it in there, and that should be good enough until I get it, you know, where I'm comfortable enough with it to drive it over here to the gas station. So that'll be pretty interesting. That'll be its first bout in public, I guess. But I'm about to start on the upholstery once I get some of this other little tidbit stuff done. And I really am wanting to get on this front seat and try to get it done, so I'll actually have something to sit in instead of sitting on a wooden stool. But anyway, that's where I'm at. Thought I'd give you guys another update, but that's pretty much what's going on. Just doing a little tidbit stuff. I'll throw a couple of clips in of the antenna stuff after this. I'm not very happy in the very first clip. I think I say cuss word, so you're just gonna have to live with it. It's not the F word, but anyway, I'm gonna get back to it. Just bolting stuff on. All right, here goes another issue with a reproduction part. So this is a brand new replacement antenna for a 55. So it comes with all the hardware attaching stuff. So when I go to to tighten this nut down, because I'm having a problem getting enough threads up through to get my chrome bezel on to put the plastic nut on to grab threads, because it's sunk down in there quite a ways before it'll get to the threads, which that's the way the factory one is. So I noticed that as I'm tightening this, the top of the antenna keeps coming toward the outside of the car. Just keeps going and going and going. Well, the reason is their base mounting plate right here is completely straight and flat. So this top of this fender is rounded and it's favored to one side. So as you're tightening it, it's trying to follow the contour of the fender and roll the top of the antenna out toward the outside of the fender. So I went out to my shed, dug around, and I found an original antenna bracket. Notice the way that's angled? Isn't that interesting? You know, if you're going to reproduce a part, you should probably do a little research. So what I'm going to do now is clean this up and paint it, and then remove their pile of shit and put this one on. Awesome. Gotta love that reproduction crap. So another thing I noticed, this shiny new bracket for the antenna mount down inside the car is completely straight. This is a factory one. See the way that's made? Isn't that interesting? So guys, if you're going to put a new antenna, reproduction antenna in your Tri-5, and you have your old original, don't throw it away. Don't throw any of the parts away, because you're going to need them. Well, so I had another issue with the antenna. This is the plastic nut. So I had to basically sand it. I used 80 and then I went to 180. But anyway, I sat there and went up and back, and then turned it a little bit up and back, turned it a little bit up and back, kept turning it so it wouldn't get it off-sided, you know, wobbly looking. But then I took a lighter and went around the edge to burn the little hairy looking plastic stuff around the edge. But this antenna is up as far as it's going to go, and there's just not much thread there, so I had to grind that down a little bit to get enough thread to catch. It kind of sucks, man. I hate having to modify stuff, but it's just part of it, I guess. Now, I will say the problems I'm having could be because I'm using the original hole in the fender. This fender was on a car that had a radio, and that is a factory antenna hole, and the 2 screw holes were factory. I just kept them in there when I did the work on the fender. So when you buy the new antenna, they give you an instruction sheet, and it actually has a template for a 55 and a 56 on where to drill it or whatever. But I don't know if that could cause my issues of being, you know, with it not having that offset top plate or not. But I will tell you on this, after getting the antenna in, I can show you exactly why that you need your factory angled piece right here. So that antenna is angled in there up and down this way. So that's why you need the angled bracket. So that is not going to work unless you bend it yourself. But again, I mean, you could make that repop stuff work if you wanted to, but fortunately I had original stuff here and I used it. So here it is installed on the car. It looks pretty nice. I like that little bit of chrome teardrop shape on that fender. Nice little detail, and it has the point on it there. And it does, you know, pull out and go down. So I've been asked by one of my buddies why I kept a fender mount antenna and why not use a hidden antenna, and the answer is I have tried a couple of hidden antennas in the past, and neither one of them, from where I live, pick up worth a crap. So I like the fender mount antenna. That way I can pick up radio stations and I don't hear static. So I remember I bought a really cheap one time, put it on my first car, and it didn't pick up nothing. And then I bought a more expensive one. I want to say it was $100 or $120 or something. This was only like 12 years ago, and it didn't pick up anything. So you know, I don't live in a town where a radio station is here in this town. It's out of town, so I have to have a good antenna, you know what I mean? And I don't mind the factory fender mount antenna. You don't really hardly see that anymore, you know what I mean? So I'm happy with it. I like original stuff on things, you know. Some of it, I like some of that original stuff. Just complements stuff very well. It just adds a little bit of zing to the front end, so I like it. It's blinding me. So that's it. It goes from a light to a dark, has tons of pearl in it. I kind of like it. I like them colors that kind of change a little bit in the different shades of the day, so give it a little bit of something pop, I guess.